Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Poison Pen. I'm Barbara Peters, and it's our honor and pleasure to be launching Janet Evanovich 27th Stephanie Plum book, which has a different title than the other 26 because there's no number in it. Hi, Janet.
Hi.
It's great to see you. Fortune and Glory. Now, I want to show you because in addition to the books that Janet, and it's been a tradition since One for the Money, and we actually found a signed first edition of One for the Money here somewhere at the Poison Pen and put it up. Janet has very kindly signed for us every single one of the Stephanie Plum books. And so she has signed Fortune and Glory. In addition, we have this wonderful postcard that Atria Books has made, and every one of our books comes with one. Patrick, do you want to show it to the Facebook people? And then turn it sideways so they can see the back. Great. So it's a Christmas postcard, and I'm going to hold it up so the Zoom camera people can see it. Additionally, Janet's publisher has kindly offered cash prizes. So 10 of you lucky people who have bought a copy or will buy a copy of Fortune and Glory from the Poison Pen will each get a $10 Poison Pen gift certificate. And we are offering a grand prize, a $50 gift certificate, all of this drawn at random. So that's the end of the sales pitch, Janet. I'm sorry you had to sit through it, but
That's good.
it's kind of the point. So, I feel like introducing you is kind of ridiculous, given the fact that everyone you'd think was watching this would know who you are, but I'll just run through a couple of things. Over the last 25 years, Janet has written a staggering 23 #1 New York Times bestsellers in the Stephanie Plum series. She's also written or co-authored Fox and O'Hare series, the Night and Moon series, the Lizzie and Diesel series, the Alexandra Barnaby novels, and a graphic novel, Troublemaker, with her daughter Alex, and I'm sure I'm missing something. And we have a new character in Fortune and Glory who is going to reappear. So we could talk about her because she's really fun. I like it. I thought we might talk, Janet, a little bit about all the characters in the books because I think one of the real attractions of Stephanie Plum are all the characters that surround her. It's her Grandma Mazur is clearly, is it Mazur or Mazur? I never can remember.
Well, it depends which side of South River you're on. I say Mazer,
Okay.
but I've heard Missouri a lot.
All right, well, I'll go with Mazur. She was actually my mother's absolute favorite character, except possibly for Lula. I mean, my mother was my age, which is old, when she was reading your book. So I think she really bonded with Grandma. But there was something about Lula in trying to cram her, what is it, size 16 body into a size 10 spandex dress that really appealed to my mother. Do you get, what do you get from readers? Do they pick a favorite character and tell you about it?
Yeah, mostly I hear about Ranger and Joe. Everybody has their favorite guy, so that's always the first thing. And then a lot of people like Grandma, because they like the humor in the book. It's hard to get a book that makes you smile and laugh these days. It's like we have a lot going on. So everybody seems to appreciate that. And but I love both of those characters. I love Grandma because she's really a mix of my Grandma Fanny and my Aunt Lena. And I love Lula because there are two characters that really have had a lot of growth in this series, Lula and Ranger. They both started out with kind of sketchy beginnings, and then just by their own force of will have propelled themselves forward and march on and have new careers, and they have a great philosophy of life. And so but Lula is like Stephanie on steroids. Lula is just more of everything. So Lula is always fun to write.
I can imagine, we can tell that you have a great time writing them because it comes across when we read them. So Joe was there from the beginning. And if I remember right, the first time you came to visit us at the Poison Pen was with your 7th book. Were they engaged and then they decided not to be engaged in book 7? Do I have that right?
You could. I mean, I write a book and then I dump it, and then like I've got the new book in my head. So my fans all know a lot more about my history than I do. They, I mean, at one point the scar on Joe Morelli's eyebrow moved to the wrong eyebrow, and everybody told me about it. So I think they've actually Joe and Stephanie have been engaged a couple times, and always had their problems. In this book, she spends a lot of time with Ranger. This is kind of the Ranger book. Not that Joe is, out of the scene, but she spends a lot of time with Ranger in this book. I thought Ranger was due some good quality time.
Absolutely. Actually, I looked it up. So I can say that Joe was engaged and it was called off in 7 Up. And Ranger then first appeared and slept with Steph in Hard 8, the book that followed. So that was kind of a logical progression, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Ranger, he was in the first book, but he was kind of a bit player. He was her mentor. He was a real kind of badass bounty hunter. And then, but by the third book, I was realizing that I had these two adults that were attracted to each other, and where was I going to go with this? How was I going to keep this from becoming a family saga? And that was when I started bringing Ranger in, because he kind of, he got into the mix and he made things complicated, and he brought a little bit more excitement into, Stephanie's romance life. So, so he slept with her first time in book 8, huh? Okay, I'll have to look that up and mark it before I go to bed tonight.
I'm trusting someone else's research. I didn't actually go back and read it, but I'm going to hope for the best. It's interesting because, I mean, Joe being a cop, even though he can be a little bit loose, still is a cop, and he has to follow, like cop procedure, and he can't do outrageously illegal things. Whereas Ranger, has a different skill set, and he can do stuff that Joe can't do by virtue of his job. So it's a nice combination for Stephanie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that part. Both of them, I started as a romance writer. So both of them really are bad boy heroes. They're good guys, but they have their own set of rules. They march to their own drummer. And I think, and that's very appealing, to have a strong man that has a really good set of values, but maybe they just, aren't the national norm. And Ranger has more latitude to be like that than Joe has. So, it gives some variety to everything.
It does. So what about Diesel? What role does Diesel play in Steph's life?
Oh my God, Diesel. Everybody loves Diesel. I get more mail asking for that series to be resurrected than anything else. And he has always flat out been, my favorite guy. Because he's a real guy. He comes home at night and he takes his clothes off and leaves them on the floor. I mean, his boots are always scuffy, and he kicks them off and watches television. He'd rather be, on an island, in a hammock under a palm tree than doing his job. But he does his job, and he has a very appealing attitude. He's a big hunky guy, and he has, and of course he has special talents. He has special skills that I think are also fun. I love that series. Diesel started off in the Plum series, and then he became so popular that I gave him his own. And then I kind of ran out of time. I just couldn't write, as many books as I wanted to. And so he was kind of jettisoned off to the side. But I always thought it would make a great television series.
That's a really interesting point. And maybe since long form television seems to be taking over more and more as movie theaters are, having to back down, maybe there will be, once they can start filming, maybe there will be more opportunities for extra series. So you really struck a chord, because every morning I pick up my husband's clothes off the floor. No matter how hard I try, I have never been able to get him to do anything but just drop them on the floor. So I start my coffee, and then I scoop up the clothes, and then I go to the laundry room, then my coffee's ready. Yeah, I understand how that goes. Patrick, you're a guy over here. Do you hang up your clothes or do you just like drop them? Are you? Okay. All right. Patrick's speaking up for the guys hanging up his
Hey,
clothes.
does he dump his cereal dish in the sink and just leave it there?
Okay. Yes, he's guilty to that one. Well, all right. So one of the things I thought was really fun was the way Stephanie introduces herself in Fortune and Glory. She says, my name, whoops, sorry, went dark there. My name is Stephanie Plum, and I'm a fugitive apprehension agent in Trenton, New Jersey. Now I have to ask you, she started out as a bounty hunter. Is this like an upscale way now of describing her job? It sounds so much classier than bounty hunter.
Yeah, well, yeah, sometimes she refers to herself as a bounty hunter, but yeah, I think it sort of makes her legitimate, gives her, yeah, because we're all about class in New Jersey. We like to be really classy when we can. So that's her attempt at being classy.
Asset recovery. Well, actually, it's the perfect description for this book because this book, in fact, is not so much about tracking down a missing felon, but it is about recovering a treasure or an asset, right?
Yeah, it's an adventure story. It's really an adventure story. It's my chance to do Indiana Jones. I'm a
Or
real Indiana Jones fan. And so I kind of, ripped off some Indiana Jones stuff in this, and I gave her a real adventure story.
why not? Yeah, I was really surprised to read in Sean Connery's obituary today in the Wall Street Journal that he actually had a role in an Indiana Jones movie. So if you're a fan of them, do you remember which one?
Oh yeah, he was Indy's dad. It was great. It was The Last Crusade. It's probably my favorite. I like the first one, and I like The Last Crusade. And Sean Connery was great. He was just an amazing dad. Yeah, it was a really good movie.
I think Sean Connery was amazing in everything. Most people think of him as James Bond, but I thought that he and Michael Caine in The Man Who Would Be King was one of the truly great movies ever. And, he could do anything. It's really hard to lose an icon like him, isn't it? Makes me,
Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, it is an adventure story, and it all stems from Grandma Miser getting married in what must be the shortest marriage on record.
Yeah, I don't know, what was it, 45 minutes or something,
It's
something
that.
like that. Yeah, and she married, she married a crook. She married a guy who did wet work. He was a killer, and I never totally resolved that in terms of how she rationalized that out, except that it was New Jersey and it was the Berg, and he was actually a good guy when he wasn't killing people. And so, but there's this treasure involved, and everyone thinks that Grandma Mazer has it, or at least she has the clues or the key to getting this massive treasure. And so it really raises the stakes because there's some real bad guys who want to get that treasure that they feel belongs to them. And so this is the second book. This follows the book. In the first book, he dies, and we go all through the funeral. And then in the very end, she inherits his lazy boy chair and discovers one of the keys and one of the clues. And so this book, Fortune and Glory, is a continuation of that, where they come after Grandma Mazer, and Stephanie feels like if she can find the treasure, she can take the pressure off Grandma Mazer. They're not gonna get her and torture and whatever to try to see if she has this information. So
I love it.
raises the stakes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I am going to, it's towards the end here, but I'm not spoiling anything, but I absolutely love this as part of the thing we're talking about. We have a new character named Gabriella in the book. And without giving anything away, she and Stephanie arrive at a place together at the end. And Gabriella, I love this. You and I have something in common, Gabriella said, tenacity. Beyond that, our talents are miles apart. You have no skills whatsoever, but you have dumb luck and uncanny instinct. I have skills, but I don't always have luck. And as they say, it's better to be lucky than good. That is just so wonderful. Gabrielle is a wonderful foil in this for Stephanie. Was it fun to bring her into the book? And then apparently you're going to have her, if she survives, continue in the sequel.
Yeah, and that's what I'm working on now is the Gabriella Rose book. And again, it's an adventure book. We're thinking about maybe it might be a series. If it is, she won't always be having an adventure. I'm thinking she could be, a recovery agent of sorts. Certainly not a bounty hunter, but she does have skills. She has a lot of skills that Stephanie doesn't have, and that's the fun for me, because every now and then I need to get out of the world of Plum and refresh myself and do a new character that's very different from Stephanie. And so this is my latest attempt at that. But, Stephanie can't cook and Gabriella Rose is a gourmet cook, and Stephanie has really no self-defense skills, and Gabriella Rose has, tons of them. She can, fly through the air like a ninja monkey, and she can, shoot a gun and actually hit people, which, I mean, she knows how to use a gun. She's smart. She's tenacious like Stephanie. She's right about that. But it's it's a much more global world that she's living in this first book. She's on an adventure. She's in South America. And then later on, and she's on an island in Costa Rica, and she's after pirate treasure because she thinks she's related to a pirate. She's related to Blackbeard, and so I'm having a lot of fun with that part of it.
I can certainly see that you are. I remember, these classics like King Solomon's Mines. I always remember King Solomon's Mines with Stephen Granger and Deborah Carr, who was, if you remember, Anna in The King and I. But she had all this gorgeous red hair. And at some point in the African jungle, it gets tangled up or something, and they whack it off with a machete. And she comes out looking as though she's just been to the beauty parlor. I mean, Hollywood was not really big on realism, even though it was an adventure in Africa. So I love adventure books. I think they're a lot of fun. Is the new title, Fortune and Glory, kind of a signal that you're moving in a slightly different direction?
Not that I'm moving in a different direction, just that I thought it would be fun to have a real title for a change. And I think we'll probably continue to have titles. It's also, if you look on the bottom, it says Tantalizing 27, because we didn't want, we couldn't break away too far from the mold. We didn't want to really confuse people. I mean, it still is a continuation of the Plum series. It's just that at the end of the preceding book, at the end of 26, in honor of Indiana Jones, the quote is "Fortune and glory, kid, fortune and glory." And in my book, it's "Fortune and glory, grandma, fortune and glory." So I said, we've got to name the next book Fortune and Glory. And that's how that all came about.
I love it. So it's actually a tribute to Indiana Jones, a little Easter egg there in the book. What fun.
Yeah.
I was thinking the first time you came to see us, we were still doing a print newsletter, and it had red all throughout. It had red blood and had read this and all that. And I remember going to all this trouble to print the one that announced that you were coming for 7-Up with purple. So we had purple blood, we had purple everything, and it was our Plum newsletter, which I've always remembered. So tonight, although you probably can't see it, I am in my Plum shoes and my Plum scarf and my Plum shirt. Plum is just a wonderful name. There's so much that you can do with it. How did you come up with the name Stephanie Plum versus anything else?
I don't know. I try to find names that are memorable, that readers, are not going to struggle with. Now, when it comes to, little tiny characters in the book, I go to my high school yearbook and, because I came from a town of Russian and Polish and Hungarian immigrants. So they're all, Kowalski and Koharchik and all this kind of stuff. But when it comes to my main characters, I really spent a lot of time searching around trying to find something. And I guess I wanted, I've always liked the name Stephanie. I think it has a lot of good music to it. And I think I probably chose Plum because, it was just sort of ripe and juicy and succulent. That was the kind of heroine that I wanted to have sometimes.
I think it's a terrific name. And as I just said, there's a lot you can do with it with color. And Joe is Italian, right? So Morelli, you needed to come up with an Italian name. Ranger, does he have a name more than Ranger? I can't remember.
Yeah, he's what is his name, Alex?
Ricardo Carlos Munoz.
Yeah, Alex is here.
Thank you.
I'm nothing without Alex. I don't remember anything. It's Ricardo Carlos Minoso.
Okay, so now
We don't use that a lot.
I know Ranger is snappier now, but still, it's nice that you're getting, a kind of global or multicultural group together. So Grandma Mazer is what? Stephanie's maternal grandmother, her mother's mother. How does Stephanie's father feel about Grandma Mazer living in the Plum household, which she has apparently done since she was widowed?
Yeah, he's not real happy about that. He's kind of like this long suffering guy that just keeps his head down at the table and shovels food in, And I think in one book, I likened it to, at one point when he was a kid, they had a dog and the dog had all these lumps on it and the dog was, incontinent. And at one point, I guess his dad took the dog out back and shot it. And Stephanie's dad sort of felt that way about Grandma Mazer. He wouldn't mind taking her out back and shooting her too. But yeah, but when it comes down to it, when she's actually in a lot of trouble, he comes through for her, so I mean, he does have some feelings for her, but he is kind of, suffering through these two women in his house.
Well, this isn't really a stretch, but he reminds me a lot of Mr. Bennet in Pride and Prejudice. I mean, that kind of a role, where the wife and the daughters and so forth are much more forward. And Mr. Bennet is kind of, there and doesn't want to interact, doesn't like a lot of fuss. I once in Yorkshire years and years and years ago stumbled into a play version of Pride and Prejudice. And it was really fascinating because the way they staged it was that Mr. Bennet, the actor, sat in a big armchair on the stage, and everyone in the family and the other characters in the drama revolved around him. But he was like the core, the center of it. And I think it's great to have like an anchor character like that where other people can, I don't want to say play off him, but he's kind of an anchor to the family. Do you see, what's his name, Frank,
Yeah.
that way?
Yeah. Well, there's also some Archie Bunker in him,
Okay, I was being too serious, sorry.
There's a little Archie Bunker in the man.
Right.
I think that's, Stephanie is like that though. Stephanie is kind of Seinfeld, where, she's the core. She's the person in the middle that everything revolves around. And to the point that sometimes I think she's a little boring, because some of the characters that are around Stephanie are a lot more interesting, like Lula. Lula, I have to be real careful that Lula doesn't overshadow Stephanie because Lula is so much fun.
Yes, I can certainly see that. Plus, they're in the same office. And Lula came in as a file clerk, but then she's become a full-fledged a bounty hunter anyway. But now, did she step back a little bit when Stephanie returns?
No, well, she started out in book one, she was a hoe.
Yes,
there was something about her when I started writing book number two, I couldn't get her out of my head. I saw that there was something there. And so I brought her in and she was a file clerk. But I mean, it was clear that she was never going to be, held to being a file clerk. She wanted to be a bounty hunter. And so that went on for a couple books. And now she's just a partner. She's not clearly defined because Lula really does whatever Lula wants to do. So if Lula wants to sit on the couch in the office and read Star magazine, that's what Lula does. But if she wants to go out and see what's going on with Stephanie, then she does that too. And I think, that will always be Lula's role. I can't imagine the Plum series without Lula. Lula's kind of the fun part for me. And she really has evolved. she's taken on a life of her own.
She's a wonderful character. So the agency is actually owned by Vinnie Plum, who is a cousin to Stephanie, right? Does he, do they just sort of ignore him, or what kind of role does Vinnie really play other than cleverly owning the agency that employs them?
Well, yeah, he's the kind of slimeball, scummy person behind the scenes. He's like a really good bonds agent, but he's, you know, like the boil on the backside of the family. He's not he's not looked on well, and he kind of hides out in his office. He has a lot of bad things going on, you know. He gambles, and he goes to see Madame Zaretsky, you know, who has a few whips and chains in the back room. And I mean, Vinny does it all. He's so some books in the past, we've seen a lot more of Vinny than we have in the last couple books. I mean, I have a problem because I have a lot of auxiliary characters. And if I bring all of them in, then, you know, the book just gets muddy with them. So Vinny has kind of taken a back seat for the last couple books, but he's her cousin. But actually it's his wife. His wife's father owns the agency. He's kind of a silent partner. His name is Harry the Hammer. So you can kind of figure that one out.
You do have fun with them. Another thing you really enjoyed, and which has been sort of a signature of the books, is blowing stuff up, almost all cars. And there's a wonderful line in the book when Stephanie says to Ranger, why didn't you, I don't want to spoil it, so I'll just, why didn't you tell me? And Ranger said, I was too busy keeping you in cars. But you do blow up something. Unfortunately, we don't want to talk about what it was. So was that fun for you to do a different blow up?
Yeah, well, I always have to blow something up. My fans would be really disappointed. And
Exactly.
sometimes they even keep track of all the cars I destroy. I've had, you know, I've had a lot of correspondence where, you know, they know better than I do how many cars I've crushed or blown up or set on fire or pushed off a cliff or whatever. I started doing that in the very beginning, and I found out I was having so much fun with it that I just kept it up.
It is a lot of fun. So Alex is there. Does Alex kind of your continuity person? Does she help you try to keep track of stuff? Because it's really hard once you've given people all these characteristics. You know, they can't suddenly change size or change color or change a lot.
Yeah, no, Alex is my everything person. Alex, I would not be on this screen without Alex. I am not a tech person. So she came over and she set up some lights because, you know, it's nighttime, and the lighting isn't really great in my office here. So although the background that you see is not my office, she has all these different backgrounds that I use when I do these virtual things. You're lucky you didn't get the one with the donuts. Was
I have one of my very own, which features my dog on the couch, and it really unnerves authors because while they're talking to me, they're watching the dog waiting for it to spring. I can see the green screen because it ripples right behind your collar. I think it's a wonderful technique. I
Oh,
like
yeah.
them.
Oh, really? You can see it? See that,
Just
Alex? You see the green scheme rippling.
it's only if you know to look for it. In my case, it's always my hair because the way the lighter sensing works. So I always look as though I'm wearing this kind of green beret when I'm on the green. It's
Your hair is
hilarious.
very pretty, I have to say.
Well, thank you very much. I like the way yours is styled very well. We're almost like twins tonight. I'm just by accident, so to speak. So let me ask Patrick if he has anything he wants to introduce, because we've talked away here.
Okay. All right. Madeline asks, would you say that the Stephanie Plum series is actually about family, blood and otherwise?
It's actually about what?
Family.
Is the Stephanie Plum series actually about family, blood or otherwise?
Yeah, I think to a large extent it is. It's about the neighborhood, it's about community, it's about family. You know, as authors, we all have our own agendas that we bring out. And I think that if it's too obvious, then you failed. I don't want to preach to my readers, because I think that my books are they're the fun books. You buy my books because you know that they're going to end well, and maybe you'll smile, halfway through, and they're going to be fun. But family is a very important component in it. It's important in my life. I think it's critical. So so there's a lot about community, the Berg. There's a lot about family, blood family, the bounty hunter family. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Margaret asks, will Stephanie ever choose a man to marry?
Margaret asks if Stephanie will ever choose a man to marry.
Yeah, everybody wants to know that. You don't think I'm going to tell you, do you?
Oh,
No, no.
that's the answer. Patrick says there's so many people watching, he's having trouble scrolling down the questions to find them. Right. So I'll ask one while you're looking. I love the lazy boy chair, but I also love the lazy boys as a name for this kind of, group of guys. Were you inspired by the furniture, or did you put in the furniture as a tribute to the name you'd already decided on?
No, I was absolutely inspired by the furniture. Because it's such an iconic chair, to have a lazy boy. And these guys are, they're kind of old. They're sort of all retired hitmen. And I just had this picture of them in this back room, all sitting around in their lazy boys, and I guess, again, I can remember my dad. My dad had a lazy boy when he got older, and he and my mom used to fight over it all the time. Whoever got there first got the lazy boy. It was a big deal. So I just I gave it to them, and then the name of the club sort of came from the chair. I mean, I thought of all these old guys sitting in these great lazy boy chairs, and then slowly, as I was writing my way through the book, it just became, the Lazy Boys, the Lazy Boy Club.
I really love it. Pay attention, because the chair is an important part of the book. Okay, another
All right.
thing.
Yes, I have a number of people saying how much they like the movie One for the Money, and just asking if there are any new movies in the works.
So a number of people are commenting about how much they enjoyed the movie of One for the Money, and they're asking if there is an additional movie or movies in the works.
Not that I know of, unfortunately. We'll have to ask my agent about that. Get busy, Shane. Hear that?
It's
We
a
want
Hollywood
more
guy.
movies.
He should be paying attention. Yes, Shane.
I know. I want a television show too. I think that would be fun. I would love to have a television show too.
As I said earlier, I think television's getting such a bonus from the pandemic, in the sense that people are now spending much more time watching streaming and cable services and other things from home. That maybe more of it will come to pass. I've always thought movie deals were harder somehow to put together than the TV deals, although I know absolutely nothing. So Shane, you can fill me in later, correct me.
Well, the movies seem to take a long time.
Yes.
And I've been involved in some pre-production for both television and movies, and it's amazing that anything ever gets made at all, because I mean, by the time you go through all of the meetings and all of the changes, and you have so many people involved, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's a very bizarre way to go about creating stuff, but they seem to be able to get it done.
It's also different for an author, because I mean, you run your own universe, but the visual stuff, it's all committee. So, it's a much different process, I think. And I always thought it would be hard if you'd written your book and you controlled it, and then passing it on to, like a group think, to be part of that. I think most authors are wise not to get involved in it.
Yeah, I actually enjoy the process. The couple times that I was able to participate, nothing
Yeah.
ever came of it. The projects that I was involved in didn't get made, unfortunately. But I like being part of it, because it's something different. I mean, day after day, I sit in my office all by myself, and they kind of throw bags of Cheetos in at me, And I don't interact with anybody a lot. So when I get something that's really collaborative, like, you know, a television project or a movie, and, you know, I get to go out to LA, and that's always fun, you know, something different. And one of the projects I even got to pitch, it, they usually it's the writer that does the pitch, but fortunate for me, unfortunate for her, there was some tragedy in the family and she had to leave, and so they were in this big lurch, and they had to have me pitch it. I just thought it was great. I loved it, you know, because I love being on stage anyway. I mean, this is very strange, this whole virtual thing, because you don't get any feedback. I like being on stage when I can see, you know, my audience, and you can hear the reaction and you feel like, you know, you're all part of it. And pitching is a little bit like that too, you know, because you're in a room full of people and you're telling them, you know, about this project you want to do. It was fun. It was really great.
Well, you know, Janet was with us to launch book 26, and we had a huge audience, and we had a really good time sitting up there talking to each other. But you're right, the feedback. I posted a photo today of you absolutely surrounded by fans at, you know, and I thought how different this experience is. On the other hand, Janet, you know what? There are thousands of people who can see this as opposed to hundreds in a room. And so it has its advantages, even if it's not as much fun for you, or there's not that interaction.
Well, I think it's something to get used to. Like I've been watching you. You're very good at this, and you're very natural at it, and you have this feeling that you're very comfortable doing it, you know. And I think this is sort of like my first, you know, attempt at this. I have more as the week goes on, so I'm waiting to see, you know, how I feel about it. You know, like after about 5 days of this, I'll probably be hooked. It's like, you know, when I do television, like when I go on the Today Show, and I don't want to do it. I just absolutely don't want to do it. I hate it. I'm in makeup. I hate it. You know, I'm backstage. I hate it. I am never doing this again. And they put the mic on me, and then they send me out, and I sit in the chair, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I love this. And then, you know, you're only on there for like 45 seconds, you know, because you're an author, you get no time. And I'm like, and then I never want to leave. I'm not leaving this chair. I've got a lot more to say. You know, I have stories, and so maybe this virtual stuff is the same way. You know, maybe by the end of the week, I'm going to be like, you know, I want my own show.
Yeah, it's really kind of you to have said those nice things. For me, this is a real treat in the sense that I get to have a conversation with you. I don't have to share with all of those fans. And so, you know, we can talk about things in a broader range than we might if we had lots more people here. So I think as a forever diet, it would not be good, but it's an interesting break from what we're used to. And I'm hoping we go forward with the mix. I'm hoping we go forward with live events when it's safe, but we can keep on doing virtual events and expand what we can do in ways that were not possible before we all got used to sort of Zooming or whatever platform we're using. Anyway, I'm burning up time for customers, so I'm sorry. Back to fans.
Well, Annette makes a good comment that Estelle, she says, I always thought Estelle Getty would have made a great Grandma Mazer in the movie. And all these people are agreeing with
Oh, so a comment was that Estelle Getty would have been great cast as Grandma Mazer in a movie.
Yeah, and you know what, that's a funny thing to have brought up, because when I started this series, you know, 100 years ago, I was really thinking of someone like Estelle Getty. I was, Grandma was an entirely different character. She was a much older woman, you know, and then when they made the movie and they had Debbie Reynolds as Grandma, I was just blown away by that, because I was like, oh my God, she's so much better at being a grandma. Because over the years of the Plum series, you know, age just changed. I mean, women were old, you know, women at 60, and now, you know, at 70 and 80, we're, we're still, yeah, I mean, things have really changed. And I saw Debbie Reynolds and I just loved her as grandma. I thought she just had so much life to her and she brought something entirely different to the mix. And I thought she was much, much more timely. She was, so if I had it to do over again, I'm sort of morphing grandma a little bit towards Debbie Reynolds, now with each book. Grandma gets a little bit younger. In this book, she dyes her hair red.
Well, you certainly don't
Because
want
some of
her,
us do this.
yeah, you don't want her to age out. So I guess that, we all sort of suspend actual aging when we read about a character like Grandma because we want her to go on forever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
as
great.
do we all.
Yes. Oh,
Great
okay.
she is.
A few people are complimenting Lorelei King as the narrator of the audiobooks and really like her. I don't listen to audiobooks, so I don't know how many she's done, but maybe you do. Has she done the whole series or just part of it?
No, she's amazing. She's just wonderful. And in fact, we finally persuaded the publisher to use her in our the little commercials and the videos that we've been making. She's wonderful, and she's an actress too. She was in Notting Hill. She was the publicist in Notting Hill. She's just an amazing lady. But she didn't start in the beginning. In the beginning, they had celebrity people reading it. I had, I don't know, 3 or 4 different readers. And, that was back in the day when they were tapes and there were, if you wanted to get the whole thing, it was like, a box of 42 tapes. She came, when did Lorelei start reading? Do you know, Alex?
Be around book 5.
Maybe around book 5, Alex thinks. She's been with us for a long time. She's become a real good friend. In fact, we haven't seen her in a while, but she's pretty special.
It's nice to have that continuity and consistency in your narrator when people get used to her being the voice.
It's critical. Whoever you hear first, that becomes the voice. And changing the narrator is very difficult for people who use the audiobooks. I mean, it throws everything off for them. So yeah, so we're lucky to have discovered Lorelei and kept her with us.
Agreed. Anything else over here?
Yeah, let's see. Fans of the Fox and O'Hare series, wondering if she'll do another one.
All right. Fans of the Fox and O'Hare series are asking if you're going to write another Fox and O'Hare.
Yeah, we have another one coming out in the spring.
And you have an interesting co-author, a new one.
Yeah, I always seem to have a new co-author. A lot of my co-authors have been my friends, and it's one of those deals, where you're sitting in a bar and you're saying, "Hey, what would be fun? Let's write a couple books together." And for a couple of the early ones, like Fief Sutton and Lee Goldberg, they're television guys. They're A-list television writers, and they were showrunners. And so they did, a couple books with me, and then they said, "Oh, this was okay, but I think I'm going to go back to being a famous television guy again." And so, so this time we have a new co-author. We'll see how that goes. But the co-authors are fun. Every time you change co-authors, the book is a little bit different, has its own personality, just a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see what everybody thinks about it. It's The Bounty, coming out in the spring.
Yeah, we're coming out in March. In point of fact, it actually says in the back of the book. So
There you go.
hey, that's really good news for you Fox and Hare fans. Terrific. All right, Patrick, any more?
People are asking a little bit about Stephanie's age and how she's dealing with that. You talked about it a little bit.
Okay. There are some questions about Stephanie's age. We just touched on it. How are you dealing with not just Grandma, but with Stephanie and Lula and everybody? There's that bargain that readers make, where it's okay that we all stay in whatever time frame we started out in.
Yeah, I made a decision early on that Stephanie and I were never going to age. So I actually am now older than my daughter. So, but Stephanie was 30 in the first book, and I have never mentioned her age since. And, it doesn't seem to be an issue, but in my mind, she's just stayed there. I was a huge fan of Robert Parker. And I really studied him when I decided to go from romance to mystery. He was the person that I looked at a lot because he was such a wordsmith, and he wrote entirely linear books. They were wonderful to read. And but he aged Parker. Spencer. He aged Spencer, and I hated that. I can still remember when Spencer got bifocals. I was like, ugh, you know, I don't want him to have bifocals. I mean, this was a hero guy. This was so I made up my mind that Stephanie was just going to be Stephanie, and she was going to stay the way she was.
Right. And then the, background just kind of moves along in real time, but Stephanie and Grandma and everybody else stay as they were. I like that. I think that's a wonderful bargain to make with readers myself. Okay. Are you ever going to bring back Sally Sweet?
You never know. That's one of those things that there's so many characters that that I love and that the readers love. And then but you have to have the right opportunity to bring them in. And we haven't heard from Sally in a long time. That's like, a voice from my past. But you never know. I'll make a note of that. Somebody wants to see Sally Sweet again.
Okay. And
We've had a bunch of people saying thank you for the humor that's carried them through the pandemic. People binging the series and how much we need it.
people are saying they've been binging this series. It's really helped them through the pandemic and how much they need them. Patrick and I were laughing because at one point, since you've been so kind as to sign books for us forever, we had like 2 shelves worth of your books that are autographed. And we now have 3. It's just like people pounced, and thought, oh, wow, I can buy this entire, collection of Stephanie Plum books. And so they have. So we feel almost like we've lost friends, I'm sitting right across from where they were, and I'm looking over there and going, what happened to Janet? And the answer is they went to fans that are really enjoying them.
Yeah, I can't believe that I have all these books. I mean, it seems like I just started writing yesterday. And I look at my own bookshelf and they're all up there, and I'm like, how did that even happen? It's it's very strange. I've been really lucky, because I tried to get published for so long. I mean, I was unpublished for 10 years and probably even longer, when it was just a dream that I might try to do this. And then, all of a sudden here I am with, I mean, my books don't even fit on my bookshelf. I have them all stacked all over the place.
I find it incredible too, because One for the Money came out after I opened the Poison Pen. So we've actually done this together in real time. And I'm astonished that 31 years have gone by. Astonished.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, I'm not even going to think about that.
Oh, that's not right. So anything else to wind up with there, kiddo?
Yeah. Several people mentioned the early love swept romances that you did.
Yeah.
Maybe asked about learning process.
So some people are asking if writing the love swept romances were a learning process, so that when you came to One for the Money, that you had already developed a lot of writer skills.
Yeah, for sure. And you can look at those little books and you can see the difference between the first one and ones later on. I think I wrote for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, and then the Plum series. And, it's always a learning process, and it's important to learn those skills because that's what makes an easy read for the reader. I mean, I don't think that readers should have to work hard reading books. I think that, they should just fly through the pages and enjoy it and get whatever they can from it. And so it was a learning experience from a lot of ways, just from, learning structure and from learning what kind of characters I liked. And I had a really good editor, Carrie Farron. edited, when you're writing romance, you're changing editors all the time. I don't know how many editors I had. Sometimes I would have 3 editors to a book. But I had Carrie Farron, and she was the first one who said to me, you have a really unique voice. And I had never heard that term before. I was like, what do you mean voice? And I started thinking about it. And so that was a really big thing, in terms of when I was writing romance, was understanding that I had a voice and that it was that voice that my readers were going to remember and want to hear every time, because I think it's very important to be consistent for your readers.
When we wound up our event last November for, I'm sorry, I keep calling it 26 because I can't remember what the key word was with 26. What the hell?
Yeah, I'd help you out, but I don't know either.
You don't know, I thought not, because you were doing the same thing. In any case, as we were winding up our conversation, Janet said something to the effect that her readers expect a certain things from an Evanovich book. And I was going to ask you, what is it you think that reader, what is an Evanovich book? Because you clearly have a very defined idea of what it is.
Yeah, it's about basically good people who are not perfect, but they get through the day, and they try hard. We don't kill any cats or dogs. We don't kill off good people. There's no really graphic onstage violence. The book ends well. You don't have to worry about the ending. I try to put some humor in every book. Some books are funnier than others. I think, and my basic attitude about writing is that I write entertainment. I think of myself as an entertainer. I think of myself as giving people positive entertainment. The person that mentioned family was right on. I think it's important that we have family and community, and that we respect each other. All of the good American Christian values, I think are critical. And I try to have some of them in the books without hitting people over the head with it. And I think that's probably, it's an easy read. I try not to make my books too long, and I've shortened the chapters because people have busy lives. And I think, my readers don't necessarily want to be intimidated by looking at a 500-page book. So those are some of the things that make up what I do.
So if a strategy for getting through the pandemic for many people has been to bake, B-A-K-E, capital, you'll be pleased to know that baked goods actually play a critical role in the very end of Fortune and Glory, and give Joe a wonderful opportunity. So I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a lot of fun indeed. So Patrick, anything else?
Yeah.
Who do you like to read? Do you have a favorite author or two?
People ask me that all the time, and I do not do a lot of reading anymore because I'm always writing. And I find it very difficult to read other people's work when I'm writing, because I tend to go to bed at night and I'm thinking about their stuff. And then I wake up in the morning and I'm thinking about their stuff instead of my stuff. So I do not do a lot of reading. I do nonfiction. I read nonfiction. I read cookbooks. I can't cook. I just read the books. Food porn. And but I couldn't say that I really have, like a favorite author at this point.
Got it. Anything else? All right, an update for Diesel and Lizzie. Can you give us one?
No, but there is a guy in the new Gabriella Rose book that I have patterned after Diesel, because I have really missed Diesel. So he doesn't have the special skills that Diesel had. Diesel sort of, we call him an unmentionable, because he can do things that other people can't do. And this guy is not an unmentionable, but he's a big, hunky, casual kind of guy with a certain attitude. he's kind of got diesel hair, you know, he's sort of a beach bum. And so I've sort of, because I didn't have any time to write another Diesel series, I kind of morphed Diesel into the character that is going to be hanging out with Gabriella Rose this summer.
Wonderful.
Um,
Have you found that you've been able to write more or less during the pandemic? And not only the pandemic, but the whole political campaign. It's all been completely distracting.
It's about the same because I mean, this is this is a job. It's the best job in the world, but it's still a job. And I have contracts and I have obligations. And so I'm up at 5 and I'm at my computer by 5:30, 6 o'clock. And I just put my time in. And honestly, I stopped watching the news a while ago because it was so distracting and I couldn't take I just got tired of all of the violence and the hatred and the, it's disturbing on top of the pandemic to have this political climate. I just, so I just divorced myself from it and I live in my own little Plum world. I live in my, now I'm writing about Gabriella Rose and I'm enjoying that. So it really has not been a huge effect in my routine.
We're winding up. It's interesting that you've introduced a new color. So we have Stephanie Plum and now we have Gabriella Rose. It must be that the colors really appeal to you. So I would like to say, I'm going to remind you that we have this fabulous postcard to make this even more fun. I think it was both very welcome and very courageous for Janet's book to be published this week when the election is tomorrow. And I'm really grateful that we've had an opportunity to just have fun tonight. And I really hope that all of you will buy one of our autographed copies of Janet's book, Fortune and Glory, as a thank you to Janet, not for us, but for her. Thanks so much for spending an hour with us. It's really been a pleasure to see you again, Janet.
Oh, you're welcome. It's always fun.
It is fun. And good night to all of you. Be sure to vote tomorrow if you haven't voted. And check our November calendar. We have lots more entertaining things coming up. Good night.